Hey, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Dana, and I will be your host. And today we have Vince Scott back again. Oh, hello, Vince. How are you?
Dana, it's great to be here again.
Well, I'm glad to have you back again. So before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, a little about your company, what you do, how you help people, all that kind of good stuff.
Absolutely. I'm the CEO and founder of Defense Cybersecurity Group. We are a consulting company focused on the uh, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or CMMC, as well as other cybersecurity issues and challenges that commercial contractors may have. We are at www.cybersecgru.com, so cybersecgru.com. And we are trying our best to be as informed as we possibly can about the CMMC ecosystem so we can share that with our clients.
And tell us a little bit about your history and how you definitely know what you're talking about, because as we mentioned before, there's some people getting involved in helping people with CMMC that really might not know.
Yeah, I'm a retired U.S. Navy cryptologist and information warfare officer. So my last military role was as the Deputy Chief of Intelligence Collection for Europe and Africa. Over the intervening years, I've worked in industry extensively, both inside and outside the defense industrial base and in the cybersecurity world. I've got extensive incident response experience. I've worked with a ton of Fortune 500 companies, on real incidents and help them solve those problems. And, most recently, I'm also the chief security officer for a medium-sized defense firm, as well as the FBI InfraGard subject matter expert for cyber warfare.
Okay. Well, I would definitely say that you are a good go-to guy for that. So you're also doing teaching. Just tell us a little bit about some of the teaching you're doing.
Yeah, I'm a provisional instructor in the CMMC ecosystem, and I teach for Southern Connecticut State University. Their professional graduate studies program has a CMMC program, and we are currently teaching the CMMC certified professional, and we'll shortly be teaching the CMMC certified assessor courses.
That's fantastic. That's great. All right. Well, that's good to hear. So now we're going to dive right into our topic, and our topic is going to be a very good one that we need to get more education out there about. And I think we're going to give you credit for this awesome idea of the evidence locker. So our first question, jumping right in here, is going to be, what is an evidence locker?
So evidence locker is a concept that I developed really out of my own experience trying to prepare for an assessment. And really, it's just a place where I put my evidence. That could be SharePoint, it could be a share drive, it could be a file folder on somebody's laptop. The more people that have access to it, and you get more hands on the wheel, I think it's better. But depending on the size of your company, it could be anything. It's just that digital place where I collect the evidence to not only am I doing what's required under the security controls and the security requirements for the DoD, but I am also collecting evidence that proves that I am doing that to some future assessor.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be very, very helpful in even, it's very nerve-wracking when you go through an assessment, right? So you're going to have the peace of mind knowing that you have all this stuff, and it's kind of a roadmap for you to help walk through, with the assessor when they start saying, well, what about this and what about this? And you can just go to that. So I know we're going to get a lot more into detail about that. But so the basics of, why do I need to have one? Why do I need to spend all this extra time putting all this together?
Well, I think the biggest difference in CMMC is from other standards is the show me part of this. There are very many standards out there where you have a policy, you have standards, you have procedures, and then the auditor or assessor says, now show me how you do this. Oh, that's hard. And we in industry, I think, are used to ISO, CMMI, other standards where a well-written policy or procedure is seen as sufficient. That is not sufficient for CMMC. It will not get you past the assessment. And so this requirement to show me is inherent in the certification process for CMMC. The other thing that CMMC has added that I personally am not aligned with as a part of the process, but we accept the process that's been given to us. If you examine the CMMC assessment process, which is currently in draft, it's called the CAP, the CAP. It has a pre-assessment phase that's very extensive, and it requires the lead assessor to examine evidence before an assessment is even started to ensure that there's enough there to start an assessment. Now, that process is built off the way that DIBCAC does this, the Defense Industrial Base Cybersecurity Assessment Center, right? DIBCAC, which is part of DCMA, the Defense Contract Management Agency. So we don't use any acronyms, and somebody doesn't yell at us in comments that we didn't break them out. That entity in the federal government charged with making sure that contractors do what they're supposed to do under contracts and audits and assesses them. And they have a branch that does that for cyber. And DIBCAC's process for this is they ring you up and say, hey, we want to do an assessment. And then they want you to send them your documentation, and they'll go through that, and they generally have a call up front. And this is sort of a feeling out stage to say, is it even worth our time to come do a full assessment on you? Because if you're completely not ready, why bother? Mm-hmm. That makes good sense from a government perspective. I don't think it fits as well as we have instantiated in the CAP currently, which requires the lead assessor to ensure that there is evidence for all controls prior to starting an assessment. So that second reason, which is you'll need to have something like this in order for a CMMC assessment to even start, as we currently understand the process, which is draft and could change, but the way it's written today, I think you got to have it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the next question, so how does creating an evidence locker help me with compliance? Go ahead.
So what I've found is that the process of this really helped me, right? So I have three primary roles that I talk about. One is Defense Cybersecurity Group, where I'm the founder and CEO of that, and we help companies prepare. One is I continue to be the chief security officer for a medium-sized defense contractor, where I have to live the dream and not just tell people what they ought to do, but then I've got to go make that a reality in a real functioning defense contractor that's doing real work. We're doing real research and development on our premises. Got to have a program. And then my third one, we're on the FBI InfraGard Cyber SME. But in my CSO hat, so we're going through this to set up a program. And we've been working on a program for a couple of years. And we decided to go to the next step, which is say, hey, I'm going to start gathering evidence to do this. As we went through the evidence gathering process, we found places where we thought we really believed we're good. And we found out we weren't.
Are you having a hard time finding new customers? A lot of folks just like you in the IT and cybersecurity space are in the same situation. And they have embraced a new opportunity to get new clients. They're doing this by growing their online presence and maximizing the power of LinkedIn. How, you ask? I have a tried and tested method called my Cyber Social Program. I myself have been on LinkedIn and now have over 3.5 million LinkedIn views, and over on YouTube, I have over 750,000 video views. So I can show you exactly how I have done that so that you can promote your organization and become the authority in your industry. And the best part is, I've done all of this organically without one paid ad. You don't need to waste your money over on Google with pay-per-click ads. Now's the time to establish yourself. Look around. The competition isn't doing it. This is your time to shine online before they do. So if you're ready to start your online journey and future-proof your business, please, down below, click the link and schedule a time for us to have a 45-minute call where I can review the exact methodology of the Cyber Social Program. You can also click below to see some of my masterclasses, which will give you quick little snippets of a couple of things you can do right away on LinkedIn that will help with your profile. I hope to see you and hear from you soon.
Because we went down to the control level, to the assessment objective level, right, which we've talked about in other places, which you got looking at assessment objectives and said, for this assessment objective, what would be evidence? What would show that I'm doing this? Where is that thing? Is it a document? Is it a procedure? Is it a snapshot of some system that's implemented a technical control? What's the thing that is evidence? And when we went to go gather that, we found some places where we went, okay, we're going to go get this thing. And we went, ooh, that thing doesn't look like we want it to look. When I hand it to an assessor, we've got more work to do. So that process of gathering a piece of evidence for every assessment objective, I found to be extraordinarily valuable in sort of, we thought we were in pretty good shape, but taking us to that next level. Now, what we also have found on the backside of this is we recently took ourselves through a mock assessment, right? So we set it up to have somebody come in and do this just like it was a CMMC assessment. And we found some more problems that we ended up having to fix. But what was really valuable on that was we would come across an assessment objective. The assessor would say, how are you doing this? And we would go, I know we've talked about that. What was the answer to that question? And out of the evidence locker, we pull up the piece of evidence we have and we go, oh, yes, that's right. We did that this way. Here it is. Oh, check. And we have evidence. Now, I don't think that all the evidence you collect is going to be absolutely everything that an assessor wants to see. They're going to go, that looks good, but show me something else. Or I want to interview someone else. Or that file that you captured as evidence, it's going to age, right? Maybe you captured it 9 months ago, as you go along in a continuous process of collecting evidence, and that one's kind of stale. And they go, I want to see it again. I want to see that it's that way today. Mm-hmm. But when that assessor walks in and sees that you have a piece of evidence for absolutely every assessment objective, I think your assessment just got easier. You have your act together. You're ready. You're prepared. You're prepared to show a piece of evidence for everything. Will that always be deemed adequate and sufficient? Maybe not. Maybe they'll want to see more. And as happened in our mock assessment case, we found some places where we thought we weren't sufficient, right? And so we marked that down and we put that on our poem and we corrected that. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great process, though, in how having an evidence locker helps you meet your compliance requirements.
Yeah, and I also think there's a big difference between telling something and showing something. And that's very important because sometimes when we feel like we're explaining something, especially if this is, maybe a non-technical company or whatever, you think that you're kind of, not that you can talk your way out of it, but you can kind of justify by talking. And I think the assessors realize that. So that's when they say, okay, well now show me. And that's when the chickens are coming home to roost. So that's when it's like, yes, okay, well, we already got it ready for you. So here it is, that's going to make a big difference.
CMMC is from Missouri. Show me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now here's
for anybody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
The Missouri state model is show me. Yeah. No, the Missouri state model is show me. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So now this is important, and I was actually wondering about this too. So how do you handle the documentation with the evidence locker? Because then doesn't that become something else that needs to be protected and guided?
Yeah, and it can be hard to manage. What we have come down on is we have a spreadsheet that has every assessment objective in it, and it has a documentation. Here is the paragraph that this is answered in. So there's a lot of is defined in this assessment objective. So XYZ is defined. Well, is defined is going to be in your documentation, right? So we have put in there, see this standard or procedure or policy, whatever the proper document it is. This paragraph 3.1.6 says, is the answer to this question. And then we have all of our policies they're in the evidence locker, but they're in their own section, which is, the policies and procedures section. So the assessor can go in and pull it up and look at the reference where you have defined that, right? So we handle it a little bit differently. And then we have a folder for each domain. and we number those files of evidence by the assessment objective that they relate to, with a little bit of, words in the name that tell you what it is, right? This is access control, snapshot of AC or whatever it is.
Well, and I think that this is really is a great way for you specifically and with your company to separate yourself from a crowd. Because I mean, to say that you're, providing, offering, helping, assisting with whatever the case may be, an evidence locker, where, as we know, there's a lot of people that are getting involved in the, well, I can help you with CMMC, and they really don't know what they're doing, versus you having that very, very detailed, spelled out. That's amazing. That really, really is.
Well, one of the advantages that we have is living the dream, right? And I don't think there are many people who are both assessing and having to run programs on a daily basis that meet this requirement in a real, not a tiny defense industrial base contractor, right? So that gives us some really good insight into what it actually takes to get this done. Every time a company asks me a question, you can be guaranteed probably multiple times we've asked ourselves that question and had to come up with an answer already about how are we going to approach this? How does this really work in a real IT environment? And how do we really set this up? Now, there are different strategies. There's different approaches, right? And we have our strategies and approaches, and those wouldn't work for everyone, right? Sometimes that's based off of what people you have, right? Sometimes it's based off of what infrastructure you have. But regardless, the evidence locker, I think, brings all of that together to make sure you have a thing to show the assessor for absolutely every one of the 320 assessment objectives. We do handle documentation, as I said, a little different. I have all my documentation stacked up and then a spreadsheet that cross-references it.
Which is fantastic too. So that's obviously a big help. And if you have that evidence locker all complete, you're definitely probably in a very good position for an assessment. So there's no question, because you wouldn't be able to put it together if you didn't have stuff.
Yeah, it's about being assessment ready at this point, right? So, and then you need to go to a C3PO and say, I'm assessment ready, and they're going to come look at you and want to say, hey, well, tell me about this. Show me your SSP. Let's talk about how you have things set up. Oh, you have an evidence locker. Oh, you have a piece of evidence already for every one of the 320 assessment objectives. You're off to the races, right? I think it's really going to help when we get into CMMC assessments.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was really, really helpful. I'm glad that we went over this, and I think this is an excellent idea. And I think that you should definitely get a good pat on the back for coming up with this. I'm sure other people have thought of it in some other, shape or form, but this is an excellent idea. Excellent idea. Is there anything you want to throw out there before or add to this before we go?
One plug, I've talked about the spreadsheet. I do have a free spreadsheet for download on my website, www.cybersecgru.com. And there's also a paid version. The paid version comes with an hour of consulting with us and has, rules that set up a dashboard that help you track stuff and a number of different tabs that help you do various things. The free version, though, has the basic, here is the list of all the assessment objectives, and could form the basis for something like that cross map to your documentation. It already laid out in there. All you would have to do is fill in the blocks.
All right, perfect. Well, if you get me that link for the free one, we'll make sure we put it down below in the show notes so people can click on it and get it. That's great. All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time there, Mr. Vince.
Thanks, Dana, for having me on. I like these, and I like doing little short ones. I think that's good that, people don't have 2 hours to listen to folks talk all the time. I like this format.
Good. Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until then, bye-bye.
Cheers.